You're having it.
Yeah, Monica was. This morning they started sending out these hangouts, so I looked at my hangout, it was like installing. I was like, oh
Yes.
no, and then show it manager.
Yes, so then.
I can't do anything without it.
Monica asked,
I pulled it off.
So anyway, she was on the tech.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Give me your phone. The one you have. Okay. I have one of those for my own personal.
Why, I get to do timer.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to call the meeting to order. If we could please have a roll call, sisters.
Mike Baldwin,
Here.
Peter Hernandez, Elizabeth Martinez,
Here.
Tricia Moore,
Yes, sir.
Elsa Rodriguez.
Here.
One absent.
If we could please stand to do the flag salute. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 4, approval of the agenda. We could have a motion to approve the agenda. I move that we approve the agenda. Second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have one consent item, 5A08H case number 201-507-0619 settlement. We can have a motion to approve the consent item 5A.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
6A.
We have a speaker, and it's Carol Rios.
She's for,
I'm sorry.
6B, right? Okay. So 6A is Dr. McIntyre for the R.O. Hardin Priority School.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me in the back? I'm going to go through this presentation fairly briefly. I do encourage you to ask any questions along the way. I certainly entertain questions at the end. But I want to premise it with the first slide, because the first slide really forms the foundation for our beliefs and certainly our beliefs with respect to how we're going to establish greater achievement at all of our district schools, and beginning with the schools with their greatest priorities that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So, but we do truly believe the single most important variable in the success of our students is the teacher. I know that this week we'll have a special countywide joint school boards meeting, and we're going to hear a speaker that evening, a fellow named Mike Schmoker, a well-known researcher, and this is, I think, at the premise, you know, and he has a lot of data and research to support that very idea that the good teachers are at the heart of the success of students. And so, with that, I want to begin with, you know, if we were doing a resolution right here at the moment, you know, I got a bunch of introductory information. So all of the first few slides are really recitals. I mean, you could almost take and put a whereas in front of this, and it gets to the point. But the point that I want to make here is that while Prop 30 restored funds to public education, or allowed funds to public education to be stabilized at a time when the California economy was just beginning to catch hold and return to its previous footing. It was really the introduction of the local control funding formula, the LCFF, and which supports and requires that each district develop a local control and accountability plan, or the LCAP. Buried not very deeply in that concept of the LCAP is the idea that we have to prioritize the funding, utilize those funds to serve the most needy students in a district, to close the achievement gap. Now that's not our term, that's a state term. That's a term that's widely used in education. But if we were to say what it means, I'll have a slide later to show you what I think it means in our district. But beginning with that, we want all of our students to achieve equally well. If we were to look at Hardin School, it's really important, in these couple of numbers, 86% of the students at Hardin are economically disadvantaged students. That's the highest in the district. Calaveras and R.O. Hardin have traditionally, almost through the years since I've been here, 1 and 2, either the greatest number of economically disadvantaged, it might be one a year, Calaveras or Hardin, but they're both very, very high. 86% are the two highest in the district, if you were to look at either Hardin or Calaveras. But 86% is very high. Economic percent of our students at Hardin are economically disadvantaged students. 65% of Hardin students are English learners. I'll show you a slide here a little bit, kind of give you an idea, just at one grade level, but where we stand relative to the rest of the state with regard to that. So the LCFF was developed to provide the funds necessary to be integrated into each district's local control and accountability plan, or LCAP. The recommendation we're bringing to you tonight, and I say we, I mean this is largely it'll be coming from me, but this is very much a group effort of our administrative team to come up with a plan to overcome the barriers that economic disadvantage and language barriers create at Hardin. Now, focus a little bit on our district mission. This is district-wide, of course. Our mission is to prepare each of our students for future success. Each meaning all, every single one. Our board goals, our first board goal, it is at the top of our list, is all Hollister School District students will be high achievers. We believe that with a high number of economically disadvantaged students and English learners at Hardin, that additional supports are necessary for us to overcome the disadvantages and to make them the high achievers that they deserve to be. All schools will be composed of collaborative teams whose members work interdependently to achieve common student-centered goals for which members are mutually accountable. That's our second goal. I've said it before, but just for the sake of posterity, that was almost taken verbatim, not word for word, but very, very closely to the definition of a professional learning community as defined by Rebecca and Rick DeFore and their work. We intended very much, I think the board did it when adopting these goals, that we would function as high-quality PLCs or professional learning communities throughout our district. In order to do that, we believe that the teachers at R.O. Hardin will require additional professional development and support to be able to collaborate as a high quality. Not that they're not doing the work already, but we think that they need more. They need more support than we've been able to give them to this point. Our third goal is technology and innovation will support educational programs for diverse learners. One quality of what we'll be talking about later is this concept of blended learning. It's a concept that requires the integrated use of technology and the ability for teachers to integrate quite a bit of technology into the display of the information to students and to ensure that there's high levels of student engagement, as well as to provide ongoing remediation or individualized instruction while a teacher is working in one group and another aide in that class could be working in another group. These students could be working independently with some other technology. So there's a number of reasons why we believe that technology will serve a critical role at Hardin. In addition, all schools provide safe and positive environments. This is our fourth goal of our district, of our four stated goals currently. One thing that we really want to focus on, and part of the training, of course, is that we do have school-wide routines and procedures that will enhance student motivation, student engagement, and also create the safe and positive learning environment that we need. You know, number one thing in public school is got to be safe. Everybody needs to feel safe, and we believe that we don't want to ignore this basic premise as we look to the instructional model. Safety is inherent in it. As well as I'll point out later, since we are doing a modernization at that site, it does integrate well into this plan that we're rolling out to you. Now, here's some slides. I only have available third grade, but because third grade is all that is available to make this comparison. I'm trying to demonstrate a particular point. This point isn't made to disparage anyone, but to do what we have to do as a professional learning community, and that's to own up to our own data. The only data we have for the third grade, now CASP, incidentally, let me point out, that is a statewide test. It replaced the STAR. In the past, the Standardized Testing and Reporting System has been replaced now with, and it's no longer in place. And what we have now is the California Assessment of Student Performance in Progress, or CAS. That's the new test. Last year was the very first, I'm talking 15 was the first year that was administered. The year prior it was kind of a test rollout, but we actually got data last year, and this is from the very first year of data. I'm using third grade because I want to make a comparison to show what can be. And that's the purpose of this slide, is the what can be. At the bottom in brown, HPS stands for Hollister Prep School. HSD obviously is our district, and the CA stands for California, it's a state. These are averages. These are the aggregate performance. But if you look at, because HPS, Hollister Prep, adds a grade level each year, this year they'll have third and fourth, but we don't have that yet because we haven't done the test this year. So this is third grade data from last year. The new definition of, if you will, pass the test is, did the students meet the standard or did they exceed it? There are other designations, but the ones you want are meets or exceeds the standard. And if you look at, this is in language arts, English language arts, ELA only. Third grade, the only year available for the comparison purpose. HPS is about 80% of their students are met or exceeded the standard in English language arts. Our district, on the other hand, is right around 30%, 35 perhaps. Is that? No, it's, well, probably close to 30%, I'm guessing. I can't tell from that exactly. In the States, roughly a little bit under 40%. So we don't meet up to the statewide standard, but we know that Hollister Prep did. So we'll have to ask ourselves why. Now we look at math, not quite as strong, but they're showing certainly far greater performance in math than in the third grade than our district and the state. Well, let's look at our populations. Now, district-wide, it's not fair to make, you know, I want to kind of make a point here about our district as a whole. Hollister Prep on a whole is roughly equal to our district on a whole when it comes to economically disadvantaged students. Remember, though, that at Hardin that number is 85%, or 86%, so it's substantially higher at Hardin. But a fair number of economically disadvantaged students at Hollister Prep. When it comes to English learners, our district as a whole, roughly what would you say, 44, 42, 44% as a district as a whole. Of course, Hardin is about 65%, and just about where HPS is, so almost equal. I'll point out that a very large percentage of the students at Hollister Prep actually were students that have been enrolled that came from Hardin, not entirely, but a fair portion of them came from Hardin. So when we talk about the achievement gap, if we just look at third grade, that yellow is our mission, that's our target, that's the gap we've got to close, and we know we can do it because it's been done elsewhere in our district with the very same students from our district. So it's not the kids, it's us, and it's saying that we have a mandate. We have to do this. So that's why it's a priority. So what we do, and what I'm going to be asking for you tonight, is your support in designating Hardin as a priority school. And by saying that, what I'm really getting at is this idea that we need to direct the additional resources to that site that are necessary for us to close the achievement gap. And I believe we have a solid plan to do that. As I said up front, we're back to this. We truly, truly believe that the single most important variable for the success of our students is the teacher. We need, in order to accomplish our goals, what we're trying to achieve, to establish a system so we can provide the support to our teachers so that they can support our students. Simply put, we just need to invest in our teachers so we can invest in our students or in our schools. So more specifically, what's the plan for the Huskies? We'll begin with the first part, training. Lots of training. Not one shot, not in and done. Ongoing, mentored, monitored, coached training. Begins with 2 solid weeks, 10 days of training for our staff, teachers, a week of training for the classified staff under this model. Paid at the hourly rate for each of the teachers. So that would be full work days, 10 days in the summer, beginning early August.
Daily rate.
Daily rate.
Daily rate.
What did I say?
You said hourly.
Oh, I'm sorry, daily rate. Forgive me, I'm sorry.
It's an important distinction.
It is a very important distinction. Yeah, not the hourly rate. The daily rate for our staff. In other words, they're per diem. I was trying to avoid per diem, but let's go. Per diem. So the teachers are going to get their salary to be there in training. But those 10 days will cost around $112,000. I wrote one time because this is not money that we're going to pull from general fund or elsewhere. We have Title II, which is training dollars, but we're also have available to us one-time teacher, what's the name of it? Educator effectiveness funds, and that one escaped me. And so those dollars would be directed. This is kind of the purpose of that, as you might imagine from the name of the funds. The cost of the training for the coaches, about $12,000. Largely, that is the cost of the actual training itself, but ongoing, because that has to be ongoing. Let me kind of come back to the teachers. Once trained, this model is going to require mentoring and coaching from coaches on site. So the principal, assistant principal, and a teacher coach will be the 3 primary coaches at the site. Under our model, each coach shouldn't carry more than 15 teachers on a load, and we believe that this staffing level should be able to allow us to get that done. But that's ongoing training, ongoing coaching, and in order to do that, we'll need some additional resources. I mentioned also the training for the instructional assistants at $3,200. Again, those are all one-time costs. Now, investment in the additional staff. You'll recall last year, 2014, when we took to the board the designation of Calaveras as a priority school. Calaveras, we established a position of a thinking maps coach. That role has become more of an ongoing coach. 2 site support teachers are additional staff that support in a variety of ways at the site in this model, we would again have 2 site support teachers. So we're looking at the same level of additional teaching support that we have at Calaveras. However, they're going to be deployed slightly differently, we believe. The really inherent, one of the things we think is really, really important is that these 2 site support teachers are really going to be working as, first off, they're going to get every bit of the training when everybody else gets that training. There'll be 24 teachers all being trained in the summer, including 2 site support teachers and teacher coach. But these site support teachers should be available for stepping into a class to allow for collaboration, discussion with the coach. If a teacher is out ill, we have a highly qualified trained teacher to step right in to take those classes that are familiar with coaching and the training at this particular site. They'll be supporting in a variety of ways, but these are a number of ways that they'll be doing that. In addition, we'll have 8 instructional assistants to work in language arts and math centers every day. So the additional staff costs, and this is an ongoing cost, would be $466,000 paid for primarily through the LCAP, or S&C funds. S&C, Supplemental Concentration Grant dollars, incidentally for the audience, and those dollars are the dollars that are designated for the purpose of and are generated by economically disadvantaged and English learners. I didn't mention earlier that those funds are also for use with foster students. I don't believe we have any foster students at Hardin, so we're entirely dedicating these resources to economically disadvantaged and English learners at Hardin. Investment in additional materials to support the teachers. We're pretty much there. A lot of this is coming out of the 15-16 budget. I think right now Hardin is about 1.401 in terms of devices. We're rolling out another Chromebook card over there this year. We'll be at 1.2 to 1. Before we make further investments, we're going to say, what do we need? If we need to go all the way to 1 to 1, we can, but we believe we're getting pretty close to what we're going to need. Right now, that'll be at 1.2 to 1 with this next rollout of a Chromebook cart that we'll be sending over there. 70-inch LCD monitors, incidentally, are part of our plan, but also part of our modernization plan. So this, I don't want to conflate the two, but these 2 things are going to be going on all at once, which kind of makes the designation and this modernization kind of rolling out together more exciting. Additional books. I'm not talking about textbooks, instructional materials. All of those things are a part of our funding for our students throughout our district through our S&C dollars and our general fund. The difference here is all of our teachers, in order to get the training they need, are going to need the additional instructional books, the training books that they're going to need. So these are training costs, those textbooks, those materials. Other odds and ends that we kind of factor in there. There might be a few more assorted things, but generally we're looking at about, assuming no additional investment in technology outside of the monitors, which we've already assumed, and the Chromebook carts, we're looking at another $2,100 worth of materials.
Are we looking at possibly even copiers, just more updated copiers, so that teachers are able to get certain materials and paper? I know it'd be nice to get away from paper, but as you're planning your lesson plans and you're needing to get certain papers together or handouts or whatever it is that you want to work on, you know, in thinking about it. I know the high school has what's called a secretarial center, and this woman is amazing. She basically, the teachers will send projects to her, and basically she's the person that will get all of these plans and things ready for them. So all they have to do is just come in, pick it up, and go on, you know, about their day. But I don't know whether we have that resource or the room or the availability to provide our teachers with just quicker access to the materials that they need to have.
No, I truly understand what you're getting at. No, it's not something we've contemplated, and I think that would be something we'd have to kind of contemplate with Mr. Talia in terms of how we would lay that out, and with Janan, you know, with Gaber, because I don't where those would go. I understand the need, because when you need something and you send it to the copier, you don't know by the time you got there if it
it's
got printed
jammed,
out,
yeah,
or if you
exactly.
got there and somebody else printed something else out, and where'd your stuff go? It is a real problem, and it
Right.
is something that, I mean, it's really nice to be able to print to a large, fast printer
Right.
rather than lasers or desk jets and those kinds of things. But we do need to have a better system for that throughout our district, and it's not something we've contemplated, but thanks, and we can talk about that more. But it would not, if it's an additional cost, that would need to be assumed it would be assumed at budget instead of at set, because all costs assumed here tonight are in the second interim.
Okay.
When we are looking at the school modernization, I do want to point it out, just because it is happening at the same time. We're beginning we're beginning this spring. We'll be moving people around. Office, I think, is moving this spring break. So we'll be beginning to be prepared so that we can begin very quickly this summer on the modernization project at Hardin. That it's going to include, of course, new doors, windows, external finishes, new flooring, and 70-inch monitors in the classrooms. There will be, in addition to that, improved disability access, student restrooms, improvements in the office space, a new secure entrance, new LED interior and exterior lights. I mean, the school will look much newer, much brighter, be much safer, no longer trippable doors and doors that really work well, and of course safe locks that we would want to have on a modern school. All of that, incidentally, adds up to about $3.85 million. I'll point out, when I say Measure M, of course, is our bond funds. We certainly will be applying to the state for reimbursement for the eligibility cost. We wouldn't be entitled to the full reimbursement for that $3.85 million, but a fair portion of it. Before I go a little further, that Prop 39 funds are energy efficiency grant funds. And Prop 39 was approved by the voters a few years ago to be kind of a stimulus thing, to get money into the from the state budget into energy efficient projects throughout the state. And ours at Hardin are largely already part of it is the roof, which was done last summer, and then of course the lighting, which would be a part through Prop 39. Measure M funds would then be backfilled to the extent that we're eligible on a 60-40 match. So, but that's for the modernization component. So when it's all done, this slide should look fairly familiar, but you know, the exterior finishes roughly looking like this: new windows, doors, a secured front entrance. That'll be what the community should. I don't know if we'll be. Our building schedule is such that we'll be walking in there in August like that, but hopefully we'll do our best. So that's the target. And with that would be the implementation of this plan. Now, of course, training over the summer. We're trying to find a location now to do the training. The trainers, if you will, at this point, we are very. I can't really. I need to give you a caveat that we're working with Hollister Prep School, Navigator Schools for the training component, but it'll also be dependent upon their board approving the agreement to allow their resources to be used. I mean, we would be paying for those resources and compensating them for that through an agreement with them. So that has not been yet approved by their board. So we still have some variables here, but in terms of what we intend to do, we would be looking to that training component for the teachers. At the same time they're doing their teacher training this summer, would be including our training. Largely, the biggest part of our training costs are the salaries for our teachers. And so we would be doing that training. We're trying to find a venue that's large enough to do all this with tables and chairs and to do it correctly. So that's something. But that will be going on at the beginning of the year, and then we would begin the year with the model review. So, in conclusion, tonight I'll ask your support in designating R.O. Hardin as a priority school to allow us to make these investments so we can achieve district goals. And you should have, as a part of this agenda item, a resolution. I didn't put it up here, but you do have a copy of the resolution, and following any questions you might have, I hope they can answer those, and I would ask for your support in approval of that resolution.
Questions? Concerns? Comments?
Let's
Lots.
Navigator, the people that run Hollister Prep and Gilroy. Okay. As I understand, it was started by James Dent.
He was one of the founding members.
Yeah. It must have been that model that they used must have been tried out in other places. I mean, I can't. I mean, sure, there's probably lots and lots of different models on how you most effectively teach this type of child or that type of students or things like that. And I'm wondering, I have a thought there. Have we investigated, looked at the basis for their model that they put together? Or, I mean, I'm sure it didn't
You're
totally
asking,
come out of James's head, and I mean, because they could not be as successful if it was completely brand new. So, I mean, I don't know who does their training for their teachers at the you know, and everything, but
there's been a bit of an evolution. I want to make a couple points first, and then work my way to your point or to your question. First, I want to point out, you know, that when one of the founding premises behind Navigator Schools was that to be able to implement a model that they can replicate elsewhere and begin to act as a learning lab. The idea that continuing to constantly hone, develop, and improve what they do, and learning from their mistakes, improve, and then share that model with others. That's why it's especially attractive to us. This particular model is very well supported by data. There are
it's not just the data that we showed here. There's
no,
lots of
and
other
it's
data.
interesting if you were to look at James, you know, or have a conversation with James. You know, recent conversation. A group of us did a visit over to Hardin or to HBS. You know, they readily acknowledge that they pull a lot of information from a lot of different places. They integrate in things from us. Thinking Maps is something that it's our district initiative. Thank you, Lana and staff who brought that to us. But they have integrated Thinking Maps into their model. Largely a big component. I don't want to just say a book, but there's a methodology that's based on the best pedagogical studies of effective teaching, and those have been refined into kind of a series of steps or things. I hate to strike the word steps. It sounds too formulaic. Best pedagogical strategies: how to teach, how to ensure students are engaged, how to ensure that a teacher maintains good control of the class through routines and procedures, as well as able to monitor the class and ensure that each student is engaged in the curriculum, in the lesson. To be able to then design lessons that are based on the content that they want to ensure that students learn, and then developing lessons that guarantee that the students learn it. Then they begin by developing assessments. And all of these are practices that are very well documented in research. That you begin then with identifying what you know, what you want them to know. And you say, over this period of time, we're going to be here. Here's our roadmap for success at grade level X, beginning in August. And by the time students are assessed in May, and actually by the end of the school year, because the assessments are just a point in time along the way. But in the course of that year, where do we want our students to be? And what are the lessons that we're going to use to get them there. But before they design those lessons, they say, well, what are these markers along the way? And how are we going to measure those things? You begin with the measurement. You integrate so you take the measurement, and then from there you design your lessons. You go back and teach this whole roadmap. Use your assessments. You assess the students. If they didn't achieve it, you go back and you reteach it. You refine your lessons. And so this is an ongoing professional learning community because it's part of this learning cycle that begins with point A. We start here, this cycle of inquiry, if you will, that where do you start? You teach it, see how it did, you do a measurement, check it. If you have to make adjustments, you make adjustments. You reteach, you check it again. If you've improved it, you keep doing that, or you continue to make refinements. And it's an ongoing cycle of constant improvement. And that whole thing is premised on, if you will, this embracing of error, this willingness to, and this kind of gets to the culture of teaching, this ability to say, we don't back away from mistakes. We embrace our mistakes and learn from our mistakes and get better. And they've been doing this for quite some time. They've been doing this throughout their implementation. Actually preceded their implementation at Gilroy Prep. Mr. Dent was a principal in Gilroy and actually had very much a good deal of success at a public school in the Gilroy School District, and then moved into the development of Navigator schools along with his colleagues. The strategies that they employ, though, wouldn't work unless they also had a very strong and effective system for coaching, mentoring, going in and helping reflect, analyze, think about, implement new strategies, come back and constantly work at it. And it is very well supported. I mean, it requires a good amount of dedication, a dedicated time in coaching every single week, and everybody expects it. They need it. I can't recall the number, and maybe Janan or somebody who probably looked at it might remember from Leverage Leadership. I think it was out of that text, but you know, if we look at the typical amount of time that a principal would spend, and I'm talking about throughout the United States, in classrooms, this method, I think, by the time a teacher is throughout a teacher's career, would have 200 times more support in their classroom using this kind of, and it might be a higher number than that, but it's a substantially more direct support every single week in the classroom. And it's, you know, it's not an evaluative kind of a coaching. This is a learning, asking questions, analyzing and repairing, or not repairing, fixing, changing, and constantly doing that, which is at the heart of our district. Remember our second goal being the collaboration of teams. And so all of these components, how you design your lessons, how you design your assessments, how you design what you teach, how you analyze what you teach, how you correct what you teach, how you actually teach, all of those components are elements of an effective education program, including the routines and procedures. The idea is that when students enter a classroom, they come in, they sit down. This is the procedure. There's something in front of them. They know what to do. They get right to work. There's no. It would be. This will sound silly, but there's research that's looked at, or one particular researcher looked at how much time we spend in a classroom handing out papers, and you know, and just if you come to a simple procedure for doing that, you can save an awful lot of time in the course of the year just in getting things in the hands of students and getting them back to the teacher again. By maximizing the amount of time you have instruction, by less wasted time with misbehavior students, which you can accomplish if you have really well-designed, well-thought-out, and well-supported and coached routines and procedures. All of those things in aggregate comprise the effective model that they've arrived at. Now, maybe there's others who are doing it. We've got data, if we look at the GPS data as well as the HPS data, all support the efficacy of the model that they've that they built, and so it's from that that it I don't want to say that we're building an HPS model. Yes, Jim.
I was just going to say, well, go ahead and finish what you're saying, but I was
But
going to.
we want to certainly learn from what they're doing and be able to maximize that. So the training component that they would give their teachers at the beginning of the year would be the same training. I wouldn't want to reinvent the wheel. That's not to say that in 5 years our model or what we're doing may not look different, because every school looks different. Different people have different ideas. As teachers collaborate and think about and solve problems on their own, they may come about it in different ways. May come up with just as good an answer, may look different than somebody else did, but it could very much look different. But we want to begin with the basic training and support mentoring.
So a lot of the research that they did, a lot of the training that Navigator has received is through an organization called Uncommon Schools in New York City. And what they've done is they've gone into inner city schools. A lot of the schools are, largely African American, but it's the same thing. Lots of English learners, lots of high poverty, and so they've developed this whole system of a lot of it is just transitions and ways that you do management within your classroom that are consistent, and then high academic rigor, and then the coaching piece. So this is their training has been through these Uncommon Schools, and I encourage you to take a look at that, because they've had a great deal of success with students who had not experienced success before. So that's part of the model that is based on that, Uncommon Schools.
Uncommon Schools.
Mm-hmm.
So did I get?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, what I'm getting in my vision is what you've been promoting with the DeFore model of collaborative and assessment and reteaching is like a beginning. Now we're going to increase, we're going to add more resources and more training to get people and the teachers and the administration and the assistants and all working together closer to reach those guys.
And every single day. It just doesn't.
It's like being on stage every day.
One of the pieces, and I think it's something that if I were in a classroom, I would be very encouraged to hear their teachers say, James may have said it as well, but is that, well, James probably did say this, and I'm trying to think of which conversation, but it was this idea that they don't want their teachers to get stressed out over having to do this alone. It's a tough job that we're asking them to do. We're asking them to do a lot. I want to back up a little bit, just kind of qualify that with their model is being successful, using that coaching, that training, but also the level of support that they have in the classroom. We can't, it's really essential that we provide the same level of support that they have, because their classrooms require more aid time than we are currently providing. That these teachers that are fully trained, these site support teachers, are in their schools always in the wings and ready to step in to take a class over, and their model, or slightly deployed differently, if somebody retires or is out ill for a long period of time or something, they have somebody who can take it, who's already trained and knows the student and the school, but also allows for a good deal of collaboration throughout the week so that teachers can watch themselves in videos. I mean, video is a common element of what they do in their schools, to look at and critique their own teaching. But you need supports to do that. But in so doing all that, their model suggests that no teacher should feel as though he or she alone has to just carry this load without others there as part of the team. And I think James used they shouldn't go home. They may go home tired because they had a long day and they were busy all day, but they shouldn't go home feeling as though they were. It's up to them to fix the world, and it's just on their shoulders alone. It's truly a team effort. Other questions? Or?
You ready for this?
Am I ready for this? Oh, is that a question for me?
That's a
I was
question to you.
wondering, am I ready for what question? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
absolutely, and I want to point out that we already are doing some of the things, and we're seeing great success with this. You know, Denise is here tonight, she's my resource teacher, and we're using a lot of like our instructional assistants actually do teach reading, and if you come to visit my school, you will see that sometimes you can't tell which is the teacher. We're using a lot of the same programs to teach phonics as the charter school is in language arts. So we have reading mastery in kindergarten, we have Horizons in first and second grade, and then we use corrected reading for our upper level kids. And consistently now, we've been doing this for 2 or 3 years, and we really are starting to see kids pop up in their ability to read. And then we have a lot of the same blended learning programs. So we're doing a lot of things in the model, but I really think that the key piece that is missing is the coaching, and is having every kid in the school and every teacher in the school on the same page with procedures. And so that, you know, as Gary was saying, a lot of time is wasted in simple things like, you know, 20 minutes to pack up your backpacks to get out the door. You know, our school day is short enough already. We really need to have it be consistent so that transitions in the classroom are quick, so that all students are focused on the teacher. And the teacher, there's many, many strategies that the teachers are trained in using, you know, to make sure that kids are in attendance, you know, call and response and so on and so forth. So, yes, absolutely, I'm ready for this, and, you know, and I think our kids are. I really think that it's about time that we really did the very, very best that we could for them. So, absolutely.
I knew the answer to that before. But yeah, you know, I've been to your school and I've seen how active everybody is. I think it's, from what I know, it's looking like it's just really, really good.
No, and that's a very, really important point. I think it's really important that we keep in mind that what we're asking of the board tonight and the designation of Hardin as a priority school allows us to make the investments in the people. We've got great teachers doing great work every day. We want to give them more support so that we can work in a more methodical, a more research-based, consistent manner, so that we can be more effective. And I think the effectiveness that comes from the training and those supports, and that will make it, you know, take a school that's doing a lot of right things and make it doing a lot of right things even better.
Yeah, Mr. Prep starts when they're at kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth this year?
The fourth this year.
Mhm. Okay. But since you don't have the luxury of starting at square one, you can't just drop all those kids that are
No, absolutely. And I
already
think-
there. Well, to me, it sounds like it's gonna take at least 5 years to figure out whether this is
Okay.
working.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
It'll,
No, I mean, you know,
See,
one
indication.
advantage that Hollister Prep is, I believe they started out with K1,
K1-2.
K1-2.
Mm-hmm.
So the first year that they assessed, so their K1-2 turned into a K1-2-3, and then the year that they did their first third graders assessment was their second year at Hollister Prep. So they were able to show pretty quick success with second graders in the third grade. Don't forget these third graders that we showed you were in their second year of that program. You know, we do have. I mean, there's no way to get around the fact that if we have fourth graders who haven't had years of early primary reading and teaching, particularly if we have a very mobile or transient population, and we have a lot of migrant students who come and go and come back, and you know, that's something we really need to be able to overcome, and we just need to make sure that when we have them, we're doing the very, very best that we can with them. But to the extent that we have these students in our school district, that they're living in the neighborhood and they'll be back next year, we should be seeing some early results with the second graders into third grade, and third graders, I would think, I think it would be noticeable in year one. But it's going to take a while for us to get our kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and working through as a school as a whole. Because our first year assessment is going to be third, fourth, and fifth. And if we have third grade students or fourth grade students or fifth grade students who are still struggling with basic reading skills, it's going to be we've got a lot of work to overcome with those students. But I would say that we would see something in year. We should see. I would think see some outcomes in the first year, and certainly by the second year.
How different is this vision that you have? Different from what has been implemented at Calaveras?
Well, I think the one piece that we didn't have, and we didn't have any data. We were talking about this recently this morning, actually this morning. When we began with Calaveras, the one thing we didn't have was any data to support our efforts. You know, we didn't have HPS's first year of success. We didn't want to venture down that road because we hadn't had that benefit of looking at their third grade scores. They weren't third graders then. They weren't there the year that we implemented. We didn't have that. But in monitoring their success at HPS, seeing it replicated, it's been at Gilroy. Now they're doing it in the first year of the third grade scores that we got from Hollister Prep. It tells us that the coaching and mentoring piece, which we don't yet have in place at Calaveras, but much of the rest of it is there, but just not the intensity, the training and the coaching is the piece that we didn't have a good handle on when we started at Calaveras. I wouldn't take any of the supports away from Calaveras that we have. I think they're absolutely essential, but I do think we want to be thinking about the training and coaching that we're doing.
For me, we've been working really hard these last few years to really give everybody an opportunity to really engage in decisions like these, because they're big. Anytime we make a huge change at any school site, it impacts everyone at the site, you know, our parents, our community. And so I think one of the great things that I really love about our district is that we take the time to really go into our community, go into these sites and ask, you know, because definitely you're going to need 100% buy-in. The mindset and the change, like you were saying, you know, it's not about evaluating when you walk in. It's about supporting. But the teacher has to know that when anybody walks into the classroom, that person is coming in for that particular purpose and no other reason whatsoever than to help them be a better teacher day in and day out. And so I want to make sure that we all start with that same premise and that same understanding, that we're there to help one another be successful. And so how do you get that? How do you start at that point so that, you know, the teachers that are there, want to be there, are going to give, you know, there's no teacher that doesn't get 110% now. So it's that belief, that trust, and that respect that, you know, as colleagues, your intent is what we said it was going to be from the very beginning. We can't break that trust throughout this process because it's not going to work. So, but I want to start there. I want to make sure that we're all working from there. And we build on that. Because if we start there, shoot, there's nothing that site won't be able to do.
Yeah, and it really is back to, you know, one concept that we began with when we set our district mission, vision, and goals. We really focused on the idea of each and every student, and we start with what's our mission. And that's at the heart of it. It's not. We're not here. I don't mean this in a crass or coarse way. We're not here for the benefit of the adults. We're here for the learning of our students. So we all have to be focused on that outcome. One of the pieces that we built into this very intentionally, in a different way than Hollister Prep did, is that coaching and mentoring cannot be evaluative. We got a different process for that. it needs to be something that is in place to focus on the support, as you know, I mean, very intentionally, the very first slide, that was the purpose of that. That's the message. That the success of this model can't be assured unless we know that that's not an evaluative data, not an evaluative purpose. That the purpose is entirely focused on the improvement of the students. And therefore, we expect to have, as I mentioned earlier, you know, the idea that you really couldn't really be effective with more than 15 teachers per coach. And that's on the high side. But if, you know, if we have an assistant principal who's carrying a few of those, and the principal carrying a few of those, we have a third person who's going to need to carry quite a few of those as well. That third person is it's not an administrator. In the Hollister Prep model, that person is an administrator. In our model, it's not. It's a teacher. And we did that very purposefully because our intent is to be able to say that a teacher is able to be an instructional leader just as much as the principal can. And how we distribute those coaching opportunities is going to be something that's going to be a collaborative effort, and you know, and to be done in such a way that everybody feels supported by somebody that is in a non-judgmental way, because we really want to be real clear. This is not evaluative. This is purely mentoring and coaching back to that district goal, our mission, and why we're here, that purpose. And we've got, you know, we just have to be real clear about our purpose. And, you know, and if I were to, you know, go back, oops. You know, that statement is at the heart of it, and we just feel as though we really must support our teachers because they're not going to be effective unless they feel supported and they feel that they've got what they need in order to be effective.
Well, I know how we went about doing Calaveras, and hopefully we were able to kind of learn some good things about what we did, and learn off of some of the not so good things we did probably as well, and going about focusing on our Hardin now, and going about selecting the teachers and the staff that will, you know, that's going to be a part of this our Hardin community, so that we're looking at the people that feel they're going to be able to work under the structure and mindset. Because like you said, I understand the whole structure and the reasoning why, you know, for in those situations it's needed for those particular kids, because many of them don't have that structure. The structure, the care, and the support from adults to help them engage in the world, learn, and be productive people in society. But there's also an organic way of, you know, reaching our kids. So the combination, just not being so rigid and structured to where it provides some of the spontaneity that spark that each teacher brings to their classroom that's unique to them. And I want to make sure that we're not losing what each teacher brings, and incorporating, like we have our PLCs and everything else as a learning community and as groups, and really bringing out those great assets each individual teacher brings, incorporating with the structure and time management and whatnot. Great, but I just don't want to lose focus in just being so thought of HPS does it a certain way, but we may model after them, but I just want it to be our model and not theirs.
Yeah, and I spoke to that earlier. I think I really do believe that over time, I think what we don't want to lose is we don't want to lose the creativity, the spontaneity, the enthusiasm, the personality of the teacher, all that teacher brings to that classroom. Certainly can't lose that, but we also can't lose the elements of the program that make it effective.
Correct.
So we've got to find the balance in doing that effectively. And I think it's worth mentioning that as we go about this, one of the, you mentioned what we did at Calaveras, you know, the very first mission that they worked on was really talk about who they are as a group, as a staff. What are we about? Where are we at? What are we after?
And Arnold Hart needs to do the same.
Yeah, you know, what's our mission? Who are we? What do we believe? And building that shared sense of purpose, because we're all in this together, which means that we're all here to support every single student, and that's all. Their success is our evidence of our ability to work well and to provide what they deserve, and so that's what they've committed to, and they had to do that, to work through that in some very purposeful meetings to identify those things. So yeah, we don't want to lose sight of that.
So are we going to also give Arnold Hart the opportunity to come together as a staff once it's designed and established, to just at least just meet as a whole before school starts, and kind of just meeting of the minds as the principal and, you know, as your support staff, and, you know, almost just kind of like a little pep talk for the year of, I know we do it as a district, but it's nice to have our schools come together as one big group and just be able to sit and talk about what the vision is for that specific school specifically, and working together and learning that, you know, it's that first day, and just the expectations that we have and the support for each other. I think it's important, just as we've tried to bring back the district breakfast and whatnot, it's important to come together as a group and just be able, without the stresses of, you know, jumping into a classroom, and just getting to know each other, meeting each other, you know, especially if we're switching teachers from one school to another, and who their colleagues are going to be on site.
I hope there's not going to be a lot of switching. I know we certainly want to give opportunities for anybody who says that this isn't what they would like to do, an opportunity to transfer out, and we have some contractual systems in place to allow for those transfers. We're going through that process now.
Okay.
We met yesterday, discussed this with Cheryl and team, and so we would like to get those done. You know, we want to make sure everybody does. But we've got a lot of contractual obligations we need to meet. We need to make sure that we get staffed and district-wide, so we've got a lot of work to do, and we want to make sure that we have that wrapped up by April 15th. And anybody wants to transfer out, we need to have places for them to go, and we want to be able to do that and get that process done first. So assuming we don't have a whole lot of transfer, or even if we do, beginning of the year, you know, I don't know, Janan, you might be able to speak to how you might organize your first meetings with the staff, or?
Well, you know, we would be meeting in those first 2 weeks for training, and I would say that probably maybe there are parts of that training that we could pull back and just be our own staff and work on things like our mission and vision, as opposed to doing that together with Navigator. So I would say that there would be, definitely that would be a really important time. There may be people who are interested in meeting before that, if they can meet at the end of July. I know Calaveras did some teamwork in July. If you have a leadership team who wants to come together and start working on the mission and vision and so on and so forth. So I think that would be really important.
Yeah, I definitely want to pull from whatever we were able to do that was very successful with Calaveras as just an example for us to learn and grow from, you know, as we start implementing different things at different sites. Because I think holding off to doing something at our Hardin, it's not to our advantage, it's not to our kids' advantage, regardless of who the board is, who the superintendent is. The vision should be what it is, and the continuity should continue, especially if it does, you know, have the buy-in and the support from our staff, from our community. Everybody needs to get behind it, and you know, that will be pretty much the goal of the board, you know, regardless of the next superintendent that comes in, is continuing with that vision and purpose.
I think so, and you know, I think if you take that concept that establishment of who we are, that commitment to a common purpose. You couple that with new training, new supports, a sense of revitalization, of reaffirmation of why we're here, and the district's commitment to everybody in that setting to have what they need to be successful. And then you pile that on top of the fact they're going to be coming into a school that's brand new on its face. It's got new classrooms, new technology. Technology is working pretty well nowadays, I might point out. And we've got some real changes that, some final steps in our technology system that allow for the wide area, the network to work very well in the classrooms. And I think when you get everything working, the technology, the classroom, the safety, the security, the training, the commitment, the purpose, all of that put together, and do that all at once, I think our Hardin has the opportunity to come back with a very refreshed, ready to go sense of enthusiasm, given the supports that will be directed at the school.
I agree. So then, as far as the resolution for this evening, will we be able to at least go back like we've done and just communicate what our plan is for our Hardin with our parents, for next year, so that we're just able to prepare them kind of what the vision is, or kind of, I don't like springing anything on them.
Actually, I have a plan already to, depending on what happens, but I was thinking, I do a copy with the principal at the beginning of every month, and if we do decide that we're going to go along with the coaching model, and a lot of I was going to tour some parents through the school so that they can see what's coming up. But you also have to realize that a lot of our parents are over there, and we have many parents who have kids in both schools.
Right.
So I think the Navigator model is not something that is completely, unknown to them. Maybe for those, as Gary said, we have a lot of kids who come and go, and Navigator does not have that. They have, 60 kids in each grade level, and then they have a waiting list. So that is one disadvantage that we are going to have. We have kids who come and go every week, but I think, even if we may not we may not see the achievement from them because they come and they go,
Right.
and maybe maybe we work really hard and then they take off. I think those kids especially need to be able to drop right into a system that's going to totally support them with teachers who are trained to support them. So, but yes, I am planning to do some, if the board approves it, I will be doing some parent information nights, and we can do some walkthroughs and have them go through Navigator and see what's going on there.
We be encouraging parents' involvement too. I know over at Calaveras they have those teachers.
We have it at
Something like that.
It's been very successful over at Hardin.
So that you've already got that settled. I mean, that's already in process.
Yes. Navigator has a lot more. They're a little bit more like the HDLA, where the parents, have to spend a certain amount of time volunteering in the classroom. That not necessarily it won't be a requirement, but certainly we can, and the more organized we are, the easier it is to say, you can help us in this way, so.
Yeah, I think once you're able to get everything established and just fine tune, then you can maybe incorporate some of that extra support from the teachers. I mean, from parents coming in and into the classroom. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, if we could have a motion to approve resolution number 14:15-16 in the matter of designating R.L. Hardin School as a priority school for the 16-17 year. So moved. Second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All
Enjoy
right.
your training, teachers.
Yeah. And I want to point out we have Elena Hatchett here this evening. Elena is the assistant principal at Hardin, and so we were grilling Janan, but we could direct questions at
And 3 of my teachers are back
three of our
here
teachers
too,
as well.
and they all just toured Navigator today. The teachers have been taking
know.
tours.
I'm glad to hear.
I think it sounds very exciting. Thank you so much. As a professional, I would have
Well,
really have been excited about it.
it's an investment in them as professional educators. It really is, and I hope that they understand that, because that's what it is. It's not about gotcha. It's not about we want to get rid of you. This is about we believe, just like we believe every child is capable of being a high achiever, we believe that every teacher is capable of being an effective, compassionate, effective teacher. So, thank you.
Clear. On item 6B, the 2015-16 second interim report. Cheryl, would you like to speak before or after the presentation? Okay. Jack, after or before?
After.
Thank you. Ms. Coon.
Sorry, this is all brand new to me up there. I see you guys up there. Okay, I have for you tonight the second interim report for 2015-16. So the interim reports are filed with a certification, and this there's 3 different certifications possible. A positive certification, which is what we're looking for, which means we will meet our. I'm sorry.
It is okay. I'm sorry.
Does it need to be closer?
Sorry.
Is that better?
Can you hear Pat? Pat. Pat. Come on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. 3 different certifications. So positive, which means that we do meet our financial obligations, not only in the current year, but the 2 subsequent years. Qualified, we may not meet it in the 2 subsequent years, and then negative, meaning that we're not going to meet our financial obligations in the current year or the next 2 years. So those are the possibilities. Tonight, we're going to recommend that you approve this second interim report with a positive certification. It is due to the County Office of Education tomorrow, which we will turn it in tomorrow. Again, the second interim report has a certain time frame, and it's based on actual expenditures as of January 31st. It is based on estimated LCFF funding. We are using the gap percentages that we just learned at the January budget proposal. And the second interim report does align with the district's LCAP. The assumptions in this report are very similar to the first interim. The ADA reporting is 5194.64. Again, this does not include the ADA from our county schools. The gap funding has changed slightly from the first interim. It's now at 51.97%. We still are continuing with our class size reduction. Our unduplicated student count is 69.03. Our minimum proportionality percentage at this point is 15.78%, which is roughly $5.7 million. And these are, again, the supplemental and concentration funds. Our enrollment at CBEDS was 5352. So this is just a slide to show you how things change and how quickly they change. And so this is the gap funding projected at budget. Then again, what we knew at first interim, and then what we know now at second interim. So you can see not too much of a change in the 15-16 year, but pretty drastic from first interim to second interim in the 16-17, and again in the 17-18 year. So it's always changing. So we just kind of want you to keep that in mind as we go forward. And then I just always want to include a slide about STRS and PERS because this is a huge expense to the district. I haven't heard anything different that it's that the increases are not going to happen. So we are still planning on these increases. Current year 15-16, we're going to spend about $2.6 million on STRS and about $973,000 for PERS. They're going up in the next, we're going to add about $1 million to STRS over the next 2 years, and a little more than $350,000 or so to PERS. So these are real expenses. These are also included in the multi-year projections. So this is what the unrestricted general fund looks like at the second interim, and this is compared to the first interim. Not too many changes. Revenue changed a little bit, partially due to that change in gap funding. We increased a little bit of revenue there. And then we also received a credit from an E-rate credit, which is a large portion of that $236,000. Expenditures projected to decrease about $556,000. This is mainly due to just going through the budget and looking at where we are right now and where we're projected to end out the year based on what we spent so far. And so the excess of revenue, the difference there is about $793,000. And that other financing, this is the contribution from the general fund to restricted funds. In this case, it's special education and routine restricted maintenance. And you'll see that we increased that contribution by $373,000. So this is mainly due to, in December is when we receive our, actually it's in January, we receive our estimates of our bill back from our San Benito County Office of Education for our preschool early start and low incidence programs. And so what we were budgeting at first interim was about $1.1 million. And in December or January when we received their estimate of the bill back, it climbed up to about 1.4, almost 1.5 million. And so that's basically what this 373 represents. So overall, net increase in fund balance, the difference, we're expecting an increase of $898,000 at this time of the year. So that's just a difference of about $420,000 from the first interim. So overall, we have ending fund balance, $6,383,000. Our non-spendable, that's our stores and our revolving cash fund. And then our 3% reserve is $1.6 million. And then assigned or committed is about $4.6 million. And I have a slide that will detail that assigned and committed a little bit later. Restricted general fund, not a huge difference here. A little bit of an increase in revenue. Some of this was due to a Microsoft voucher that we received, and also some of it is local revenue. So when the county office does their January estimate for their bill back, we also do our excess cost bill back to the rural districts. And so based on the December 1st counts, that was a little bit higher than what we had anticipated at first interim. So expenditures up slightly, a little difference there, excess of revenue of $344,000. That other financing sources, again, is the contribution. So overall, a difference from first interim to second interim, just about $28,000. This is just a picture. Total revenues, this is unrestricted and restricted. So about almost $56 million. Majority, of course, is from the LCFF. And 7% from federal, 9% from state, and then 7% from other local. But the majority of our funding, of course, comes from the LCFF. Expenditures, that's about 82%, remaining pretty constant for salaries and benefits. So, of course, the largest part of our budget. Books and supplies and services make up the other portion. This is the multi-year projection. So this will be 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18. And so in the 16-17 year, we have included the expenses, the projected expenses for the R.L. Hardin School. In the 16-70 projection is in no way our finished budget. So we're still working on our budget. Lana's still doing her meetings with parents and groups for the LCAP. And so this is just our projection at this time, but I just want you to know that that's not the way the final budget will probably come to you. And so our overall, this is restricted and unrestricted combined funds. So overall in 15-16, we're projecting an increase of $1.4 million. In 16-17 would be deficit spending by about $1 million, and then 17-18 a deficit spend again about $249,000. So overall, we meet our reserves in all 3 years, and we have assigned and committed And so in that 17-18 year, if you look at our assigned, committed, and our reserves, we still meet the board goal, which is for those out years of between 8 and 9%. This is just a breakdown of the contribution from the general fund. Again, you can see the big change is right there in special education, an increase of about $375,000. Under SB 858, we are now required to list our reserve level, anything over our minimum. So our minimum is 3%. So this is that assigned, committed portion that you saw on the earlier slide. So our non-spendable, again, is our stores and our revolving fund. Our state preschool program, at the first interim, we committed this $105,000. We're projecting a shortfall in that program for this year. Even though the enrollment is up, so we're hoping it may not be this much, but we don't know yet. One-time funds, these are a portion of the $2.7 million that we received this year for one-time funding. So we're going to hold these as one-time funds, and so they don't go into the pot as carryover and for ongoing expenditures. Language arts adoption, it may or may not happen this year, but we want to make sure we set the dollars aside. And then the remaining portion, the $2.1 million, are additional reserves so that we can meet that board goal in that 17-18 year between the 8 to 9%. So the next steps in the budget cycle, we still have not received our final 14-15 audit report. Still getting a few emails, a couple of questions. They're still reviewing the cash reconciliation from the county office for the 14-15 year. So I'm hoping to get that sometime this month and then be able to report that back to you in April. Around May 15th is the time when the governor's May revision should come out for that 16-17 budget. And hopefully we're planning on this being enough time that we'll have our major budget developed by that point, but hopefully there's enough time to go in and make any revisions that we think are actually going to come to fruition. Or we may, if it's kind of questionable if these really will be enacted in the final budget, we may wait and do a revision after our final adoption in June. May 24th, we're going to have a public hearing, and that's when we're going to bring the 16-17 budget to you for review, as well as the LCAP plan. And then at the June 21st meeting is where the budget and the LCAP will be adopted. So we try to align all the expenses in the district budget and stay with the district mission, vision, and goals. And so I think we've done that with this report. And so at this time, I'm asking you first if there's any questions, and then second to approve the second interim report. Questions?
My only question, there hasn't been a revision since January, between January and May?
No. So what he does is he gives his first, January proposal, and then everybody kind of looks at that, and then they start fighting over the dollars. And so that's where they're at right now. So there'll be a May revision, and then there's still a little time frame in there before he finally signs the budget. So all the way until he finally signs, these numbers could change.
2 speaker cards. Cheryl Rios. Right, I'm 6 feet.
Thank you very much. I mostly have some questions, and I hope maybe Kathy can clear some things up. As I look at the unaudited report from September of 2015, the first interim that was presented, and now the second interim, I see LCFF revenue sources increased this year over the unaudited actuals of $9 million. And so I'd like to know where the $9 million is projected to be spent. So that's one question. If I have my numbers wrong, let me know. Also, I'd like to know
what, well, actually, I'm sorry, the $9 million is total revenue, not just LCFF sources. Also, I know that we have canceled the contract with the county office to have students go to Santa Ana next year, so I'm wondering how much.
We canceled it, and then we went back and said we can't do it cheaper ourselves.
Right.
Oh, okay,
We
I hadn't
received-
heard that, so I was
Yeah.
wondering where that, okay. That's news. And Kathy had mentioned that the expenses for R.O. Hardin are in here. I'd like to know, what those specifically are for R.O. Hardin, just so that we can see where the money is being spent for that. And then also with, I understand that we will not be doing an ELA adoption next year, that we will just be piloting the language arts adoptions. So we shouldn't have to have money being held for that if we're not going to be adopting it until the end of 2016-17 school year. So that was an amount that that Kathy had mentioned that they were holding on to for that adoption. So those are the questions that I have.
Okay, so as far as the changes of revenue, so all of those changes in revenue are incorporated now into the 15-16 budget. So I'm not sure when you ask where they're being spent. I'm not really sure what you mean, because it's all within this total expenditures.
I guess, just looking at the numbers, there seems to be so much more money coming in over last year. And so, are you saying that we're spending $9 million more than we did last year because we have $9 million more coming in?
Right, so what you have to compare is the total revenues to total expenditures. Is that what you're looking at?
In
Okay,
comparison to
total
last
revenue.
year.
In comparison to last year.
Mhm.
So all revenues that we're going to be receiving in the 15-16 year are in this $55,985,000. And all expenditures that we expect to spend in 15-16 are wrapped into that $54,493,000.
So then you have taken that $9 million and you've allocated it out for expenditures.
Yeah, any revenue that we projected, so whether, we're receiving more money in LCFF revenue, any revenue that we are due to receive this year based on the gap funding and everything that we know from the January governor's budget proposal are in this $55,985,000.
We increased FTEs as well, right, Kathy, from 14-15 to 15-16.
We do. We increased our expenses because yes, we added more teachers, and but it's all in this $54 million. So we're projecting a $1.4 million increase in the ending fund balance. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Okay, well, we're not doing the Santa Ana thing. What are the expenses for R.O. Hardin?
So I don't have those detailed out here, but I know that we have one coach. We're hiring two. Did you have
my
those?
slide back up, I did break the cost.
Do you have each one in there?
Did I miss that one?
Were you talking about the priority school implementation?
Yes.
Or, okay. So he did provide that. in
I'm
his
sorry.
Yeah, that should,
I must have
and,
taken that.
Cheryl, can I I'll email you
Okay.
that. I'll just, we got to share a document. I will send you a text or a
Okay.
PDF of it right
Okay,
now.
I must have been looking down when you
Probably
showed that. I
slide
apologize.
12 or
Yeah, and the
See, I don't have the slides.
the expenses from those projected expenses for our Hardin are coming from several pots of money. So we're anticipating, we're going to get in 16-17, we're anticipating anyway, getting about 1.1 million in one-time funds. And so some of those funds are going to be used for some R.O. Hardin expenses with professional development and probably technology.
And then we're also using supplemental concentration funds for teachers and things like that, since it's going to become a priority school.
Cheryl, I'll send you a PDF of it. It is on
Okay.
roughly slide 18, 17 and 18, so I'll send you a
Okay.
PDF.
I must have been looking away. I apologize.
I do that to people. I mean, it just happens, you know. I start talking and people start snoozing. That's just the way it goes.
And the other one was just the ELA adoption. That I thought that we definitely weren't doing it until after we.
May I answer that one?
Yes, please.
Cheryl, that's most likely, but we don't want to do away with the opportunity that we might want to adopt, sometime after the pilot, like we did with math. We actually adopted in January, February with math. People got the materials, got a chance to become familiar with them and start using them, and then they were ready for the training that came the following August. So we don't want to say, well, no, that's not possible, that we can't adopt next year, because if we're looking at potentially 3 different programs, 2 look very promising, one so the third one, if the teachers felt strongly that they didn't need to see the third one, we might be ready to look at doing something like we did with math. So I don't want to say no. I don't want to say that's not possible.
Okay.
So once it's earmarked, it's designated for that purpose as you want to implement it.
That's a lot of instructional materials money anyway,
Right.
mostly, so it's not like it can be used for anything else. So yeah.
And I just want to add too, just like the math adoption, we had a large sum of money set aside, but we ended up just spreading that out and paying for it yearly. I think it's over
Instead of going
5
for
years.
a several-year adoption, which would have cost us a lot up front, we determined not to do it that way.
And so we're not
Because
sure.
they're consumable products now, and we're anticipating that the language arts may be as well.
Okay.
So that's really just a set aside, just until we know more information.
Okay. Thank you.
Have another card, back over.
Jack Bockover. His comment actually follows up on Mrs. Rio's comment with regard to slides. And I've noticed since last year, and I don't know when the change took place, I was the CBO from August 2005 through April 2012. Every financial presentation I made was put on my report on the website, and copies were made for the public. And I only went back a little bit because the last month I showed up unexpectedly. I thought I could make a public comment about it, but it was very informative. I got a chance to sit through the 3 search firms, and I think you guys did a great job in terms of who you hired. But I made the comment saying, where is these reports? Am I in the audience supposed to be writing like crazy all of these numbers on all of these reports because it is not listed for anybody in the public? This is a public meeting. So I went over and above. I think the HESTA and CSA people remember that I specifically gave them copies of every presentation. So they had a hard copy to take notes on, and it was also on the website. I only went back a little bit. I went to the original budget for this year, unaudited actuals, first interim report, and now tonight on the second interim report. These presentations from your finance director are nowhere to be found. Anywhere. You've got them. We don't have them. You're asking people in the public to possibly go out and support a $40 million bond. I'm talking about financial transparency. I did ask Mrs. Cunane, with regard to the first interim report, how come it wasn't available in December? And she said, well, my presentation wasn't done until the day of the meeting. I always had it done at the time the interim report was done. Brown Act, 72 hours. Should be done then. I asked where are the copies. Oh, nobody asked me to make copies. I am not obligated to make copies. I'm asking the board to advise the superintendent, Dr. McIntyre now, in the new one to make all financial presentations on the website and a hard copy for some people. But this is unbelievable that all of this information has always been presented. None of us have a copy of it. We have the interim report. We don't have the finance director's reports. And that makes it really hard to support district initiatives. So I'd like the board to instruct the superintendent to give specific instructions, finance director, do it. It was done that way for 7 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, if we have a motion to accept the 2015 second interim report as presented.
I'd like to move that we accept the second interim report as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And just for the record, I think you've done an excellent job, Kathy, of presenting the data and explaining it for all of us. School finance is probably one of the most difficult things to dig into and present in a comprehensive way for people that aren't fully knowledgeable of what the details are. But it's very time consuming and it's very stressful because there's always a lot of factors and things changing from as you're getting different information from different departments and so I personally appreciate your commitment and your ability to always give us numbers that have been rock solid. When I came in, that was my biggest thing was the numbers. And since you've been here, there's never been a doubt in my mind where we are with our numbers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I love your knowledge. I got to come back from Sacramento and my head was spinning with numbers. You helped me quite a bit with that. Thank you. You've been outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that Dr. McIntyre's assistant, Jesus, does post these presentations to the board minutes, I believe. Correct?
I see in the minutes that a presentation was made, but I don't see a copy of the entire presentation attached. Nor do I see it. I just don't see it.
It's attached.
Huh? For today? Take a look at the original budget. Take a look at the ONI actual. Take a look at the first interim report. I'm talking about every single presentation. And as of Friday, it wasn't attached.
Well, if it's there, it's there. I think it's not fair to make an accusation like that. If the information wasn't there, we'll definitely make sure that it is. But we just have to be careful in how we come across and make accusations like that, Jeff, because as being the CBO here, there were a lot of different things that were going on. And trust and integrity and transparency has been nothing but the utmost thing that Kathy has presented since she's been here. So, I don't agree with your statement, but, I understand.
The first interim report, that was the comment when I was here last month when I gave early insight to the presentation. I couldn't find it in the first interim report.
Okay. Appreciate your input. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome, Kathy.
Okay, last thing, adjournment.
I move that this meeting be adjourned.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Quick on the draw.
How are you? How's Eli and them doing?
They're doing well, thank you.
Of course they are.
Yeah, he was, an all-star tourney now, so.
This one?
We have volleyball tournament, Gabby, Baldwin.
So
He's
this,
looking at it right now. It's not
this
there.
is
Let me
the
take a look at it.
PowerPoint, that's
Got
what you.
Larry this weekend, 2 weeks from now,
Right.
Reno.
That's what I'm talking about. It'll be-
I'm not talking about Larry, but I'll go to Reno.
Because I just got it.
And then I think it is the question, because it's presented just so differently in the PowerPoint. The numbers might be the same, so forth, but, you know, bits and pieces are
Do
taken.
you want it in the actual board packet when it's posted?
No, they want, we want the PowerPoint presentation
Yes.
to be publicly available on the website that you can see it, and maybe a couple more times.
This is my memo.
Because it has been there for